Hi everyone, so welcome to another academic video. This one is a mid-semester what's gone wrong so far check-in video. So if you're just joining the channel for the first time, welcome to our academic space here on YouTube. My name is Caroline. I am a UK-based physics academic, so I research and I teach and I work at a UK university. And we're just about starting week 6. Which I got the right week. Is it week 6? It's week 6 or week 7. I should know which week we're about to start. I think it's week 6. We're just about to start week 6 and we have 11 weeks before we break for our Christmas kind of holidays, our Christmas vacation. So we're almost at the halfway point or just crossed the halfway point. And I thought it would be a really good time to kind of check in and honestly look back at the last 5 or 6 weeks and share maybe what hasn't gone to plan. I think as academics, we have very high standards for ourselves. We like, lessons to go smoothly. We like research to go smoothly, papers to get published. And it isn't always like that in the world of university. So here are just a few of the things that have happened to me. And I would love to know in the comments how your semester is going and how things are working out for you. First up is broken IT. So my university usually is pretty good with having fancy kind of lecterns where you can stand and record and film and give your lectures. I think I made a past kind of green screen video where I kind of showed off the lecture kind of area that I stand out to give my talks. I'll include a card and a link in the description box below. But over the last couple of weeks I've had a few issues in the lecture theatres. So last week the mouse battery just stopped working. I usually carry a spare keyboard and mouse kind of around with me, and I hadn't on that particular day got a spare mouse at all, and so I couldn't communicate with the computer in the room because I just had no control over it. So I had to ask one of the students if I could borrow one of their mice so that I could give the lecture. One of my lectures I walked in and there was a technical support colleague who had the whole desk apart. That is always slightly worrying when you're about to give a lecture and the entire computer, camera and everything else is in pieces at the front of the lecture theatre. But he was putting it all back together as I arrived. So that was, in the end, fine. But, a little bit amusing to walk in and see the lecture theatre in a state of destruction about 2 minutes before my lecture was scheduled to start. One of my recordings, I recorded the first half of the lecture and then I answered some student questions. So I tend to take the mic off in the breaks that I have so that I don't pick up the audio when I'm answering student questions. And of course I forgot to put the mic back on for the second half of the lecture. That was hilarious. And again, it didn't really matter because I wasn't releasing the recording to the students. I'm releasing last year's recordings because I filmed those, at home with nice lighting and nice audio. But it was funny that I forgot to put the microphone back on. I have in previous years walked out of the lecture theatre whilst wearing the microphone from that particular lecture theatre, got all the way to my car and then realised I was still wearing the mic from the lecture hall and had to go all the way back to the lecture theatre to return it. That was hilarious. And then in my lecture last week on Friday, I do quite a lot of derivations looking at colliding particles. And if you've ever done physics and looked at colliding particles, there can be a lot of subscripts, particle 1, particle 2, initial states, final states. And I like to handwrite it at the same time as the students so that we all keep track together. And I was scheduled that day to give class in a really fancy lecture theatre. And I thought, brilliant, I'm going to have a really nice lecture theatre. It's going to be a nice end of the week class. It's next to a coffee shop so the students can get a coffee halfway through. It'll be a really nice, comfortable lecturing experience. And of course, when I got there, the projector that I use, the visualizer that I write my handwritten notes on to project onto the main screen, the light bulb had broken. And there was no blackboard in that room, there were no whiteboard, so I had to go off my backup electronic slides. I always have backup electronic slides. Quite often I have backup hard copies of slides as well. But it just meant that rather than being able to write at the same time as saying all these subscripts, I had to talk to a set of PowerPoint slides instead, which isn't my preferred choice of giving that lecture. I don't think it's as engaging for the students as I'd like it to be. I find myself having to work that bit harder to make it interactive and more engaging and interesting when I'm not handwriting that particular derivation. So yeah, lecture theatres, in the main, it's been okay, but over the last 5 weeks, I've definitely had a few niggles with computer mice lighting and lecterns just not being in tip-top what I need them to be in condition. But that's fine, that's just regular kind of lecture theatre stuff, you know. 9 times out of 10, the IT all works beautifully. You just remember the 1 or 2 occasions where things go awry and it's slightly awkward. I've had my office door painted, as I said in a previous video. We've got a new colour scheme in my department block. It's to go with our new kind of laboratory setup. But it meant that my door, because it was freshly painted when it was then shut, actually stuck shut. So to enter my office, I then had to pretty much kick the door down in order to break the paint seal to be able to get back into my office environment. So that was quite amusing one day when I went in. And the weather has been really against us. So if you're also based in the UK, you'll know that we've been having some unseasonably warm weather for the end of October, but also an awful lot of rain. And I did an open day, I think it was last Sunday, so not the recent one, the one that before, and it absolutely tipped it down. I drove to work, like there was just floods everywhere, thunderstorms. I was like, are people going to even want to come to see the university when the weather is this bad? They did come, so students came wearing their wellies, but part of our open day includes an outside tour up to our kind of telescope area. And I did say, do you want to go on the tour still? And they did. So we had to run tours outside. Thankfully, the rain eased off a little bit, which made it slightly more pleasant. But you can't control the weather. And as missions tutor, I would love to be able to show off the campus on a glorious sunny day or on a glorious snow-filled day when the campus looks beautiful when it's covered in snow. It's just a bit odd when it's thunderclouds, rain everywhere, people get very damp and soggy, and you're trying to show off the kind of the facilities in the department. And driving home was quite scary. I was driving back in a thunderstorm with lightning going on around the car, so that was an eventful weekend. I have worked a couple of weekends on the university campus already, so in the last 5 weeks we've had 2 weekend open days. I've actually got another weekend open day coming up in November, and I have been doing some weekend working as well, so a bit of teaching prep and a bit of marking. It probably means I should revisit my kind of work-life pattern and make sure that I'm taking enough downtime away from work. It's not healthy to be working all the time, and I'm really a strong advocate of not doing that and having a good work-life balance. It's just the start of semester has been quite busy, and if I'm not careful, it's too easy to kind of get sucked into it and to work basically too many hours in a week. So I need to take a rain check on that and keep an eye on things. What else has happened? Oh yeah, and finally my students couldn't find the first lecture theatre. So we were timetabled a really random room, one that we wouldn't normally use for our lectures. I guess it was a busy timetabling week and we got allocated this lecture theatre, but students had no idea where it was. So I ended up standing in like the piazza, kind of marshalling students towards the lecture theatre to then go and give the lecture. I've also had new PhD students start. We've had, fun getting their IT sorted, making sure their desks are ready. I've got PhD students who are scheduling to finish, I'm trying to keep my research ticking along, which is hard when it's busy for teaching. There's also a conference coming up in a couple of weeks' time, which I can't go to in person. It's in Europe and I can't get there because I'm teaching, but I can join in virtually. So yeah, it's been a fun 5 weeks of semester so far. In the main, it's gone fine, but there has been a couple of moments which have made me either laugh or think, oh gosh, this is going to be harder work than it needs to be. But let me know in the comments, how have your last 5 weeks, 6 weeks been? Are you teaching this semester? Is it running nice and smoothly? Are you a student? Is it nice and easy to find your lecture theatres? Are you enjoying your class? Are you thinking about being a lecturer but are worried about having to give a class and maybe having a mouth that doesn't work, or IT that maybe, is a bit tricky or awkward? Let me know how you're finding it. Next week we'll jump back into research career pathways and how you can become an academic, and a little bit more about the research side of this semester. But I thought it might just be fun to do a kind of a 5-week, not update, but a 5-week look back on how the semester has been so far. So yeah, let me know in the comments, how are things for you? And if you haven't already, maybe hit the subscribe button. It's a free space here on YouTube to talk all things academic. I am compiling a list of all the comments and questions. There's some great questions coming in. So do please keep leaving your comments. Have a really, really good week. Have a good start to November, and I will see you next Monday. Bye.